I'm here to talk about mobbing or mob programming, and so this is basically a report of my experience that I had last year with Waze. So during those 5 months, I was in a team, and all code produced during those 5 months was done during mobbing. So that was like a whole day on a call, um, and what I really want you to get away from this talk is that if you find yourselves in a position of now you have an engagement where you have to mob, just I want to get from this talk that it's not awful. It's actually can give you pretty good results. Um, yeah, so I'm not an advocate of mobbing. I don't think it's going to be like one size fits all. There's a lot of nuance, so I'm going to be listing pros and cons. So I really just want to give you an honest report of what happened during those 5 months. So my name is Flávio Sousa. I got a master's in mechanical engineering in 2010, and I did a few years of research. And then at the time, a lot of just like the moment where startups in the web space in Lisbon started appearing, and initially I had a job in one of these startups, and I wasn't doing web, but I saw how web developers were collaborating, and that for me was coming from like almost like academia, so to speak, although it was a very short-lived position. I saw how the web was collaborating and how good that was, and how I wished the university had that ethos of open collaboration. So open source really brought me into web development. And so 2015 I moved to London, always doing web development. And yeah, I started contracting since 2019. Now I'm with EE. And outside of work, I did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu until an injury put a stop to that. So now I just dance for over the weekends. Okay, so now I'm gonna ask like a show of hands before I like start like talking, giving more details. So who knows what mobbing is? Okay, good. I have something to tell then. And so who's done it for more than one instance at a time? Like who's done it for like 1 month or like something like that, where that was an expectation? Okay, cool. Pair programming, I take it that everyone has done it in some way or another. Okay. Okay, so this is my framing around the problem. This is the way I have to explain what mob programming is. So the problem is the modern web stack has just too many moving pieces, and there's an increasing number of components, and that is languages, frameworks. There's the famous. I'm gonna get closer to the mic. Sorry. There's the famous JavaScript framework fatigue, and so every time you join a new project, there's just like a seemingly increasing number of things that you have to pick up, and so for you to be productive, it just seems that there's an ever increasing number of things, and this is not to mention like the specificities of the code base, and so what I started watching in the past few years is that even though very few companies do mandatory pairing, let me take a step back. So so from the problem that there's just too many things to pick up, what my approach has always been one of the three. So you either learn the fundamentals of computer science. It's just a consequence of you having information and human knowledge being processed by electrical machinery that deals with bytes. And so those fundamentals, those patterns, you see them emerging in different layers of the stack. And so I found that learning more about the fundamentals was one of the ways that I could use to adapt myself to new projects. The other thing is specialize. You pick a tool and you just run with it. You work on that stack. That's it. And the third one is knowledge sharing. So things that make knowledge sharing easier are helpful coworkers and documentation. In terms of helpful coworkers, you think of pair programming, and so one of the things that I've been seeing increasingly is the expectation of coworkers to pair program, and also if I'm in a new project, I might bring a different set of skills, but I always feel like until I'm able to really deliver that value, it's really helpful if people can with a high level of domain knowledge, people that have been in the project for longer. Is really helpful when I pair together with them. I feel that speeds up the process. So if you take pair programming and you just imagine it all the way down up to 11, and it's this idea of now you have two minds coming together and collaborating and bringing different skill sets, but at a different level of intensity. So I would like to present you more programming as pair programming on steroids. And so what is it in a less figurative way? What is it exactly? So it's a single work stream, and the idea is that everyone necessary for the task is present, and that means people can come and go. And so in our case at Aways, we were between 4 to 5 devs and QA, and every time we needed the engineering manager, there was like some issue with the task, like we couldn't make sense of it. We would have the engineering manager or the project manager, and so it's this idea that it's one continuous workflow where people just join. And so the idea as well is, like, officially all code is done during mob hours. So everything has to be done in this process where everyone is present. And in a moment I'll show how that's actually done. And so as a consequence of this, there is no pull request. There's no PR review. So work gets done, and when it's ready, it gets pushed to straight to master, and then there's obviously you have the deploy pipeline. But this idea that for me it was a bit, it's actually quite daunting. So no pull request, you just send your code to master. The person that would have reviewed was there in the call with you, so that that review process was done moment to moment. It was actually integrated in the whole work that got done. So this is how it looks like. This is from a talk from Woody Zuil. He's the creator of mobbing as it's being practiced today, and this is literally how it looks like when people are sitting at an office. So you can see. Basically, all the keyboards are connected to the same computer, so everyone is on the same ID, everyone is on the same computer, and the idea is that control goes. People would assume control at different times, and so his definition: all the brilliant people working on the same thing at the same time in the same space, and I put and on the same computer between parentheses because. As we'll see, because we will basically, this can also be done remotely, and as I'll make a case later, I think it's actually a really good way of adapting to remote work. So the art of coding when everyone is waiting. There's a bit of a sorry. Yeah. So one of the things that I really want you to leave from this talk with is that it's a fundamental. The way I came to see it is a fundamental shift in the way you approach your work. So. Up until this moment, I felt okay. I have a job. I sit down. There's a keyboard, tasks, solve the problem, create a pull request. But this is fundamentally different. It's like I'm going to use an analogy of imagine like you play tennis all your life, and that's your job. But then now you have to play doubles, and you can still use your like you can bring your skill set to the table, but now there's like the strategy changes completely. You can't. You have to take into consideration that now it's there's a team dynamic, right? And so the other thing is given the close proximity to other people, there's just no hiding away. You're gonna make mistakes. You can't fool anyone. The mistake is out in the open. So you have to be really comfortable with that. And the sooner you move away from that, I said something that was inaccurate. That's just fine. Everyone is going to do that. Everyone is going to make a mistake, and not understanding that creates a lot of friction. And so the other thing is you're not delivering your task anymore. So you see the unit of competence moving away from the individual contributor to the team. So now the team is responsible to deliver, and again, I'll make the case that creates more resilience. It reduces the buzz factor. Okay, so. So I'm going to list the pros. So as a consequence of having everyone working in the same space, you basically have an immediate integration of roles. So the idea is that everyone that's necessary for the completion of the task is present. We were a team of developers. We had one QA. Luckily, he was a really good coder as well. So there wasn't a moment where like he never had anything to do. But the idea is that if you need someone to if you need input from someone, we're just gonna go and grab that person. The other thing is I felt it was I was just being given a tour of the code, and I felt it was a brilliant way of getting someone up to speed. I was able to be much more productive because just spent days and weeks of people just every time we had a new service, we would just be given a tour. You can kind of take the back seat and just think about what's happening. The other thing is conflict resolution, because conflicts arise, just the nature of having people in such a close proximity, and when conflicts arise, it's actually an opportunity for people to get to know themselves a little bit better, and as a consequence, I felt I was closer to this team than like certainly I would have otherwise, just because the sheer amount of hours you spend speaking with your teammates, and so it wasn't necessary like after work drinks or anything like that for you to have like a clear expectation of what this human being in front of me really is. And the other thing is it was a brilliant adaptation to remote work. I felt going into a call, I felt almost like going into the office where you have that switch, and that was just working from home. And so I try to really convey people this idea that for remote teams it's brilliant. The other thing is we had a lot of feedback from management that we were having reduced production issues, and one thing that I've seen happening a lot was that just because ownership of the task being done is distributed by people. You have so many eyes, and um, the, the level of critical thinking that a piece of functionality had to go through before reach production. I saw many instances of like, okay, this would have been a really nasty bug in production. Um, the other thing is precisely because of that, you have your bust factor is reduced. So now you have more people that know how the code base works and have authority over a given feature. And given enough eyeballs, all bugs are shallow. So this is an adage from open source development, and this is what you see happening in what I saw happening in mobbing. So now the cons and the list is equally long in my opinion. So now you don't have individual ownership if you like doing things a certain way, which I do like to do things a certain way. Now that's a bit more difficult. You have to contribute outside of mob hours. You have to study the problem, try to understand how things work. If you want to bring your game to the table, so to speak. The other thing is mobbing is sold as this like highly collaborative. It's just gonna all your organization is gonna collaborate all of a sudden, and that's not true. If you have that's not inherently true. If you have a group of 5 hyper competitive people in a room, they're just gonna do what hyper competitive people do. So watching out for competition, because you might have a group of individuals that is highly competitive, and then one person that has a lot to contribute but is not as competitive, and that's going to be a dangerous mixture. The other thing is everything is up for discussion. There's a lot of sometimes it was a bit tiring because you just want to get things done, and there's this constant one day you might not be feeling like it, and literally everything is up for discussion. It can get stressful, especially if you don't change that mindset, or if you have difficulty adapting. Just you feel so naked thinking, like feel so exposed thinking in front of people. That for me wasn't natural at all. Once work practices settle is a bit, just because it's those workflows are distributed through 4 or 5 people, it gets more difficult to change things. And the other thing is you need a reliable, consistently reliable internet connection. If you're working from an office, that room in the house that doesn't have a great connectivity, it's going to be an issue. So in practice, so this is going to be a list of like practical things that we were doing. It's this was extracted from a document that so every time we had new people joining the team, we kind of had to have like an agreement of how things were going to work, because people bring different expectations. So the main thing I would say was this tool called mob.sh, which is a command line tool where literally you just type. You use that to orchestrate your workflow. So everything is done through Git. So imagine 4 or 5 people on a call, and every fixed interval, the control like goes around people. So you steal the screen, and then you just type mob start, and that downloads the code in that separate branch, and that's how you do your contribution. Then you do mob next, and the other person does mob start, and so on and so forth, until it's done. You're happy, you do mob done, and then you commit to master, and you push things to you push your branch. So out of pair programming, we were doing driver and navigator, but it was actually like a loose version of that. We only reverted to more fixed roles when people were having difficulties, but we would just, this rigidity would kind of dissolve. The other thing is role duration, right? So we've settled on 8 minutes. Smaller teams might do like 15 minutes. mob.sh, already talked about it, mob hours. So we were mobbing from 10 to 12, and from 2 p.m. to 5:30. So if you all the thinking, if you wanted to study some solution, had to be done outside of this interval. And coding versus refinement. Coding, I felt we got it, and we were able to like reach that flow velocity. Refinement, just from the fact that we weren't doing it as often, it was a bit more irregular, so to speak. And the other thing is, it was a closure team, so closure developers like to have the REPL running, where you introspect your code and you kind of build your solution in this interactive way. And so what would happen was, the driver and the navigator were officially tackling the problem, and someone else would be automatically just studying the solution on their own. So it's not like everyone is just like sitting there and while the others do the work. There's many things that you can do to contribute. We would hit like some place where the solution wasn't easy, or we got stuck, and someone, because they were studying and trying something out with the REPL, they would come out with a solution and save the day. Right. So I'll give you some authoritative references. So two of them are from Woody Zuhl, and again, he's the creator of mobbing as we know it. So the first one is from his conference, and the second one is a podcast. And then the third reference is a really interesting study that I've seen, which brings a data-driven arguments to the conversation. And the author compares. He used data from 40,000 pull requests, which is a lot of data, and he makes a case that given that there's a lower limit to how much you can break down your pull request, and given that in an async workflow you're just waiting around for other people, that way of working has inherent like limits in terms of throughput. And he makes a case that async co-creation patterns like pair programming and mobbing can help to fix that. So that's that was the talk. I'm gonna move to questions now, and thank you to everyone from the Ways engagement that made this opportunity possible, and also to Liz yesterday that organized a call where she organized a call where we basically gave feedback to everyone, and that was helpful for this presentation.